You are now listening to AB on the Unpopular Opinion Podcast.
What's up, everybody? I'm your host, AB, and you are now listening to the Unpopular Opinion Podcast. I got my boy joining me today. Pat, what's good?
What's good with you, man? How you
cooling,
doing?
bro. I'm cooling. So, trying to stay safe in this season, man. Everything going on. But, so we're going to do another episode today. Keeping it hot for y'all. We're going to keep them coming. Today, we're going to be talking about Steph Curry, 46-point performance versus OKC. 12 threes. That boy was just killing it, man. He was hot. So, we're going to be talking about that today. And all that comes with it, man. We're going to give y'all the full breakdown of the game. All the details, the things that y'all don't hear anywhere else, we're going to give it to y'all today. So let's get it. My boy Pat. So, when you think about this game, man, this was that same season, 73-9. You know, Steph just came off an MVP. You know, going for his second, which was unanimous that season. We remember, we know. What do you think about that game, man? The beginning stages of that game, you know, we know Steph Curry eventually dropped 46, but what were you thinking that game? Because that was a big regular season game coming up, facing their nemesis OKC at their home.
Well, that was a huge game. It was a big mark because at the time they had the best record at the time in the league.
53-5.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, they were 52. Yes.
Well, 52-5. Yeah, they
52
became 53-5.
Yeah, after that game.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Amazing game. Started out, it was really kind of nip and tug of war type of game.
Definitely.
It was hard for the Warriors to kind of get a stranglehold on the lead. The Thunder definitely played well throughout early in the game. We're giving them a run for their money. Looked like they might have ran away with it at certain points in that first half. It was really tough.
Yeah. I remember every time Golden State would try to catch up or try to, get closer and closer. When, they would cut it down to 5, OKC would bring it back to 9. When they would try to cut it to 3, they'll bring it back to 7. So it's definitely a back and forth game, tug and pull. And Kevin Durant played great that game. 37 points. 13 of 26, so he's shooting 50% from the field. 7 of 11 from 3, 7 threes, and shooting at a high clip. 12 boards, 5 assists, 2 blocks. So, how you think, KD, Westbrook, those boys, let's start there on their side. Their performance that game, and like you said, they played well, but, not good enough.
Well, Thunder had a really good game overall, but some performances were kind of suspect. Like Westbrook going 10 of 29, that's around a 35% clip. Yep. That is not what you need against a top tier team like the Warriors at that time. Too. Over 6, that's kind of expected from Westbrook. He's not really a 3-point shooter.
Facts.
But 10 for 29, that's unacceptable. Mm-hmm. Especially for a player like him, you're number 1, number 2 option on your team. You can't go out like that in a game like that.
Right.
Kevin Durant, like you said, played a great game, but the Warriors were just able to hit important shots when it was needed. They were able to hit those shots that was able to keep them in the game. Like you said, they would shrink it down to 5, and the Thunder would go back up 11 or whatever, but the Warriors would always find a way to keep the game in a manageable distance to where they could hit that stride when they finally got in that mojo, like when they got in that groove.
Particularly Klay and Steph, because Klay and Steph basically carried the offense. Steph had 46 that game, Klay had 32 that game. Only one other player was in double figures, and that was Iguodala with 12. Mm-hmm. So talk about that, how Steph Curry and Klay, how they basically carried the offense for that team, those two players.
Klay had a tough game from 3-point range. If I'm not mistaken, he was 2 for 9 from the 3-point line.
Yep.
But he was still able to score because, Klay's a great player off the ball. Mm-hmm. That's one thing about him. He doesn't have to take many dribbles. That's why he's a great defender.
Right.
Because he doesn't have to exert as much on offense, on ball. Because I mean, it's tiring running around screens, but it's a lot more tiring when you got a man
Dribble.
on your hip.
Yep.
You know, you got to do all that extra work with the ball. So that's why I feel like Klay plays a great role in that team because he hits big shots. He doesn't have to do much with the ball, and he finishes well. So, like you said, no one else is able to come through. But when you got players like that on your team, two of the best shooters in history, like
backcourt. That's what Mark Jackson said. Best backcourt.
When they're feeling it, there's nothing you can do about it, man. It's just tough to stop. No matter who you are, if both of them are on this.
And speaking of best backcourt, that was around the time when John Wall was still healthy. So you talk about John Wall and Bradley Beal. You talk about Damian Lillard and CJ. As far as backcourts, if you could think back to that season, because what other backcourt was at that time that was deadly? I think those were the main three. Where would you rank those? Do you think Bradley Beal? Obviously, you probably would say Steph and Klay.
I mean, you could also say Harden and CP.
Harden and CP at that time too. Yeah. So, where would you rank those four? Let's stay with those four backcourts. Where would you rank those?
Like in an order, I would definitely put the Warriors first. After that, maybe it's a toss-up between CP and Harden and Dame and CJ. I definitely would put John Wall and Bradley Beal at the bottom. Not saying that they're a bad tandem, but just when you put them up against that type of competition, I would definitely put them at the bottom.
But they were the ones that were arguing that they were better than Klay and Steph. Nah, not happening. Nah, not happening. I wouldn't take that backcourt over them.
Offensively, they're great, but I mean, they just have so many holes in their game. I just don't. You can't compare the two.
Right. Yeah, you're right. It would probably be a toss-up. I would say the same, but with Harden and Chris. I probably would take Harden and Chris, just because
they're more proven.
More proven, and Harden is the difference maker. I would say in that. Just because Harden can do so much. He can rebound for you. He get the dimes for you. He get the other team in foul trouble, which a lot of people talk about how many fouls he draws, but that's a part of the game, and it's an important element of the game because now if I can get your center out the game, that makes it easier for me to get to the cup. So all of those elements I love about James Harden's game. Very underrated in a lot of ways. I would say, I know that sounds crazy, but that's why we talking on Unpopular Opinion, because it's unpopular. But that's an underrated part of his game, the fact that he can draw fouls and get defenses pretty much shaken up. Their game plan, they have to change it up because now our center's not on the court. So let's talk about Klay. Let's talk about Klay. He went 12 for 23, like you said, 2 of 9, 6 from 7 from the line, really good. Which that's another element. They don't miss free throws. That team wasn't missing no free throws. So he had 1 assist, so he didn't have which is not his role. That's not his thing. His thing is just a snipe, 2 steals, play good defense, 3 boards, 1 block, 32 points. So, talk about Klay's clutch baskets in those, because I remember in that game he had some clutch baskets in that game too.
One clutch basket that really comes to mind when I think of this game was, I think it was in the final minute, maybe the final minute and a half of regulation. Curry had just come down and hit 2 clutch threes to kind of bring the game back within striking distance. And once again, they were just right outside of that point of being in the game. And Curry comes down and hits a nice pass to Klay in the corner. And Klay just cashes out, does what he does best.
And he get the ball out so quick. It's like, it don't matter if you close out or anything. You basically got to block it or it's going in, which is deadly.
And it's fluid, like just straight through.
You think he got the prettiest jumper in the NBA?
Yeah, I definitely think Klay Thompson has the best jumper in the league. He doesn't get the opportunity because he's on the team with a guy like Curry to shoot like he could, but Klay's definitely got it.
Do you think Klay could carry his own team, be the number 1 option?
No.
Why you say that?
That's not his game. Like I said, Klay's kind of off the ball kind of guy.
He kind of like it's unpopular, but he kind of like a better version of Pippen, bro. Like, I think Pippen is the better defender, but I think Klay's like far better, more like he can do more things offensively. Like, cause Klay will bang on you too now. Like Klay be dunking.
Klay definitely has some.
He got a good finishing ability. He can't pass as good as Pippen, but I think in the role, okay, I at least say they're similar. If he's not better, definitely similar to Steph's. Steph and Klay and Jordan and Pippen. They mix perfectly together. Steph and Klay mix so well together. They both need each other.
Splash Brothers, man.
Splash Brothers. That's why they got that name, man, because they really can do it and do it well. Both of them being 3-point champions, crazy. When has that happened ever? Has that ever happened?
I don't think so. Not that I ever remember.
Which is not really talked about a lot, but it's like both of them won a 3-point contest, and I think either Klay or Steph got 2. I think I can't recall, but it's still just crazy. It's like both of these dudes are 3-point champions, best shooters, in the NBA. Definitely, probably 1 and 2. You gotta probably throw Book in there.
I would put Book under them for sure. I'm a Phoenix fan. It hurts me to say, but Steph and Klay are definitely
different.
They're a different tier.
They different.
Because Booker doesn't really have that automatic 3-pointer. Like inside the 3-point line, Booker's amazing, but outside the 3-point line, it sometimes takes him a little while to get his rhythm. And if he gets his rhythm, he's firing on all cylinders.
Right.
But those guys are just a little more consistent. Like Klay and Steph, they're a little more consistent from 3.
I also got to defend Book in a way because they load up so much on him defensively, and their play style is a lot different from Golden State. Obviously, they don't do a lot of off-ball screens. They don't do a lot of the flashes or cuts to the rim like a Golden State would because they don't have the personnel. It's kind of hard to mimic the way that Golden State plays, not because that Steve Kerr's just a genius, but it's also the personnel that Golden State had, back in those years and still today, still now in a lot of ways. But you got Sean Livingston who can handle the ball, who can play at the post. That's your backup point guard. You got Barbosa at that time who was a very good guard in his own right, could defend really well. He had some really good defense, especially in those Phoenix years, and could, start fast breaks, faster just about anybody in the league. You got Draymond who can pass. All these guys can pass pretty much. Barnes can pass a little bit. Bogut was definitely a good passer at the post. So, let's talk about that. Let's talk about their utility. The fact that they could use so many different lineups and alter what the other team does because they're so great at what they do.
Well, they had the perfect setup kind of with the team that they put together because they brought in some key veterans that were able to keep that team in line. Like coming off the bench, like you said, you got guys like Sean Livingston and Andre Iguodala and JaVale McGee and Mo Spates and David West.
Yeah, Barry Giles playing some big minutes for them. Ian Clark sometimes played big minutes. Then they had that backup guard. I liked him. I think he played for Toronto now.
Ish Smith?
It was, what is that guy's name? Patrick McCaw.
Oh, McCaw, yeah.
Patrick McCaw.
They had him for a couple years. I think they drafted him,
for a few years. Yep, they drafted him in the 2nd round. But I liked him a lot. What he did for the team. He could, make open threes, spot up threes, corner threes. He played really good corner defense. Nice size, I think he's 6'5", 6'6". Really good guard for them, man. I liked him a lot. I think they wanted to keep him, but they couldn't afford him when they got KD. So, he got another ring with Toronto when they won. So, shout out to Patrick McCaw, man. I like his game a lot. Let's talk about Bogut. Let's talk about his role with that team because Bogut was huge. Remember, he got hurt in that finals that eventually came later that season. Him and Iggy got hurt. I think he got hurt in games 6 and 7. He didn't play. But talk about his role and his importance of that team.
Bogut and Zaza. I feel like definitely got to talk about Zaza if we're going to talk about Bogut because they had similar roles.
Yeah, I think Bogut was a little better. definitely defensively, Bogut was nasty. He catch alley-oops a lot better.
I mean, Bogut was there before Curry and them even blew up, though. So Bogut was like an OG.
Right. He was nasty with the Bucks. People forget.
Mm-hmm.
Like, before his injuries, Bogut had some really nice seasons. He was coming into his own.
Yeah, man. Like, and with a guy like that, he didn't play those big minutes like a lot of key players because he played his role well. Mm-hmm. He was able to come in, play solid minutes against the big man, and then they came and they played small ball. Because the Warriors love to play small ball because of the style of play they play. They play fast ball, off ball screens. They're running, trying to get a bunch of guys open. They need a lot of smaller guys that have stamina and energy to do a lot of running. You can't do that when you have a 7-foot, almost 300-pound, 280-pound guy in there.
Right.
So Bogut didn't play big minutes, but when he was in there, he made big plays. Mm-hmm. He got key rebounds. Just being an intimidator at the rim alone, throwing guys vibe off when they're coming to the rim. That's just big things that you need from a player. Like I said, Golden State has great role players, and that's another one of them. He plays his role, and he plays it well.
Right. So I agree, man. Everything you said about Bogut, his passing ability, his presence at the rim, just defensively, he could run pretty decent for a big man, doing what he needed to do to try to keep up. Catching alley-oops, finishing at the rim like that, very important. In this game that we're talking about, OKC, he only had 4 points. He didn't have any rebounds or things like that. He had a block, but he played 17 minutes, solid minutes, So, and actually, in this particular game, they played a lot more Iggy and played Draymond at the 5. Mm-hmm. So Iggy played 33 minutes out of the 48 plus 5, 53 minutes. And Iggy played a big role too. Talk about Iggy making them free throws at the end. And, his role in the team. Then he got the smackdown steal on Russell on the defensive end. Talk about like Iggy and how important he was to the Warriors during their runs and, maybe a little bit in this game too.
Iggy is a key component to that Warrior success through those years. Mm-hmm. A guy like that, it's tough because when he was in Philadelphia, he was a great player, carried Philadelphia through a lot, but he couldn't do it by himself.
Right.
So when you get a guy like that comes to a team like Golden State, and he's a little older now, but he's been through the game. Mm-hmm. It's amazing to have a guy like that come out that can score clutch buckets. And like you mentioned, that the free throws that he had to tie the game, he's not a great free throw shooter.
Right.
He's a not even 60%, 65% free throw shooter. And he hits the 2 biggest free throws possibly that he had to take the entire season.
Right. And, those were his only 2 free throws in that game.
And sinks.
No warm-up, no nothing. Like, just the only 2 free throws, and those the only 2 free throws he made the entire game was the 2 to take them into overtime.
And he doesn't take a lot of shots. So his rhythm isn't even, like, surging. He doesn't have that adrenaline pumping in those final couple moments. Like, that's not a guy you want taking your free throws. But that was a big moment.
Ice in his veins, man. You gotta have ice in your veins. And those are the type of players that, Golden State had. They had guys that were ready for the moment. Sean Livingston was ready for the moment. He didn't have a lot of finals appearances before. He didn't have one, I don't think. So Sean Livingston playing key roles. Barbosa playing key roles in the finals. Spates playing key roles in the finals when they had him.
He developed that 3-point jumper, like we were saying in our previous segment, with like big man not playing that post role anymore. He's one of those guys. Most Spates was aggressive, but when he developed that little jumper and he could hit that corner 3 and
he nice
stretched
jumper.
The defense out a little bit, man.
Jumper, man. He had a really nice jumper. I like Mo Spates, and Mo Spates is well beloved in the Bay Area. I know that. Like, Mo Spates get a lot of love. There's actually an article that I read about, Mo Spates earlier, but we ain't gonna get into all that. Mo Spates definitely a great player in his own right, and his role for that team for sure. So let's get back to Steph finally. That man had 12 threes in that game. 12 was 16.
If I'm not mistaken, didn't he break his own previous record for 3-pointers made in the game? That game?
Yes, he broke it in that game. So you talk about this man had 46 points. 36 of his points came from three.
And 6 of those were free throws, aren't they?
6 points from free throws. So he really only made two 2-point baskets. And it was probably his layup.
Made 2 shots inside of the 3-point line. That is ridiculous. Like, that is ridiculous. Just to think about.
Right, really. I mean, for hoop heads and people like us who, had our moments when we played in high school and things like that, like, to think that my only 4 of my points out of 46 was inside the 3-point line, outside of free throws, is just crazy to think about.
Hey, you know what's even crazier? He still managed to outscore Draymond just with his shots inside the 3-point line.
Crazy, man. I'm sorry, Dre. We love you, Dre, for real, man. I'm defending you, bro, because he still had 14 dimes, 14 boards, 6 steals, 4 blocks. Great in his own right. On that defensive end, crazy. But, Steph is just like that, man. Like, Steph just lit it up. Let's talk about the moment that everybody want to know about and talk about from this game.
Mm-hmm.
His record-breaking 3. Let's break down that scenario real quick. So, remember, like you said, Klay got that 3 in the corner, right? In the final winning moments. We talk about the overtime scenario. That was a part of the overtime scenario to get them to overtime. Steph in overtime still hitting clutch buckets, right? I recall I think they missed a bucket because Steph got KD in foul trouble, fouled him out in the game,
mm-hmm.
right?
Early
in overtime. Early in overtime. Mm-hmm. KD fouls out. Westbrook, make some pretty good plays, get some good assists and things like that, but bricks the jump shot to, get them into a point where they could close out that game. It's 118-118. I think Steph either gets the rebound or somebody gets into him immediately. In that situation, typically you're going to call a timeout. You're going to want to draw up a play, this or that. Steph don't want a timeout. He gets the ball immediately. Your coach has to trust that you're going to have to make the right play too, because as a coach, you naturally want to take control of the game. Let's get a good shot. Let's get a smart shot, whatever. But you got Steph Curry on your team. Steph pulls up from, 40 feet?
32.
32 feet against Roberson, the best defender that they have, and drains it.
Mm-hmm.
The crowd goes crazy. But what you think in that moment? Do the little jig. Hey! He did his little thing. What you think about that, bro? Because that had to be probably... And people talk about Steph not being clutch, but that has to be one of the clutchest shots that I ever seen in my life. So, give me your breakdown of what you thought of that.
All right, so... Right before that shot happened and the Westbrook miss, Klay Thompson got the and one to tie the game up. Boom. Another big play from Klay in that game.
That's right.
So then it comes down to, like you said, they get the ball, they kick it to Curry. If you call a timeout at that moment, it's tough on you as an offensive team because that also gives the defense time to set up.
Exactly.
If you don't call a timeout, when you have a player like Curry, you don't have to call a timeout in that situation because he can literally make the best possible thing happen, which happened. 0.6 seconds left on the clock. He drains a 32-footer in the face of, like you mentioned, their best defender.
Best defender, man.
And which he had been doing all game. I mean, anybody that guarded him, Kyle Singlet, Steven Adams, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Andre Roberson, Anthony Morrow. The list goes on.
He was roasting KD in some of them possessions. So.
And KD's a 7-foot guard.
Right.
And was out there getting fried by Stephen Curry.
Yes. Steph Curry, a phenomenal player, man. One of my favorite players in the NBA. There's a reason why he's so beloved amongst kids and adults alike. Grown men don't want to say it, but the babyface assassin, whatever you want to call him, that's a bad boy. That's a bad boy. So, we want to thank everybody for tuning in, for checking us out, man. This was a great episode. I enjoyed it. Just getting it in with my boy Pap.
Appreciate
Thank y'all for tuning in. Of course, man. Of course. We thank y'all for tuning in. And, everybody check out the YouTube. We're going to keep these rolling, keep these going. And we out of here, man.